if I don't disappear tonight, it will be a miracle." The words slipped from my lips in a trembling whisper, so fragile they might have shattered like glass. The phone line swallowed them wholesale, cold, merciless. I pressed the phone harder against my ear, desperate for a reply, any sign of life. But there was nothing, only the deafening hum of static. With a sudden loss of control, the device slipped through my fingers, crashing onto the worn wooden floor, like the final echo of a fading hope. Outside, rain battered the window relentlessly. "You think you're a genius?" A sharp, venomous voice cut through the darkness, Lynn's cold and biting like ice. "You're just a scared little girl pretending to be someone you're not." My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. The rage burned hot, fierce and wild, threatening to ignite the storm inside me. "I worked for months. You stole everything." I spat back, voice cracking like a whip in the silence. Lynn laughed cruel, hollow. "Steal? No, Allison. I took what was mine when you hesitated. You've always been too afraid to leap." The words hit me like knives, twisting deeper than any wound. But beneath the fury, I saw the truth hidden in her glare, the desperation, the broken dreams masked by a vicious grin. "Why does this pain feel like it's ripping me apart?" I thought, my mind unraveling. Am I even real anymore? Or just a shadow trapped in a game I never wanted to play? A crash echoed from the kitchen, a vase shattered against the tile, fragments scattering like my scattered hope. Lynn's eyes flashed with dark triumph. "This isn't over," she hissed. "There's more, you'll see." My breath came fast, ragged. The walls seemed to close in, the flickering light casting twisted shadows that danced like demons. My reflection caught in the cracked mirror fractured shards of a woman fighting to hold herself together. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I will rise," I whispered to the silence. "No matter how deep the darkness, dawn will come." The room was heavy with silence, but inside me, chaos screamed like a wildfire out of control. Memories clawed their way up from the darkest corners of my mind, fragments of a childhood, drowned in cold neglect and whispered cruelties. "Stop being so sensitive, Allison." My mother's voice slashed through the air, sharp as shattered glass. "You imagine things that aren't there." I remember shrinking under that gaze, the chill of her words seeping into my bones like poison. My father's silence was worse an abyss, swallowing every hope, every plea for warmth. Two strangers trapped beneath one roof, their cold indifference a prison I never escaped. Late at night, I'd lie awake, clutching a threadbare blanket, listening to the muffled echoes of their bitterness, footsteps pacing, whispered arguments like knives slicing the thin walls between us. "Why can't you be normal?" my father had growled once, voice heavy with disgust. "She's a burden." Those words echoed endlessly, haunting me with every breath. Was I enough? Was I broken beyond repair? Outside, the world was no kinder. Whispers trailed me like vultures circling their prey. Eyes full of judgment, voices sharp with unspoken disdain. I learned early to hide the storm raging inside behind a calm, unreadable mask. But inside, the war raged on. Am I invisible? Or just too afraid to fight? I wondered, heart pounding like a trapped animal. The flickering desk lamp cast long shadows across my scattered notebook's pages filled with sketches and scribbled dreams, fragile sparks of hope amid the wreckage. I traced the worn edges of a faded photograph, me, mother's smile frozen in time, a ghost of warmth I'd never fully known. The bitter scent of chamomile tea wrapped around me, a fleeting comfort against the cold that gnawed at my soul. A sudden shudder ran through me, a mixture of fear and fury. Why did the past still hold such power to break me? Could I rise from these ashes, or was I destined to burn forever? The broken clock on the wall mocked me with its frozen hands. But inside, I vowed, I will not be broken, I will not be forgotten. But the shadows weren't done yet. A sudden sharp knock at the door jolted me, breath catching in my throat. A voice familiar, yet venomous, slithered through the cracks. "You think you can fight this alone? You're already losing, Allison." The war was just beginning. The air between us was electric thick with years of unspoken grudges and simmering resentment. Lynn's eyes burned into mine, sharp and unforgiving, a predator sizing up her prey. "You think you're a genius?" Her voice was low, dripping with contempt. "You're just a scared little girl pretending to be someone she's not." I felt the words pierce me like knives, but fury surged beneath my skin, hot and wild. "I am not afraid," I snapped back, my voice trembling but fierce. "And I'm done hiding." She laughed at a cruel, hollow sound that echoed through the cramped room. "Done hiding?" Lynn spat. "You're barely holding on. Your dreams? Nothing but delusions. You've always been too weak to fight." The walls seemed to close in, the flickering light casting long shadows that danced like ghosts of our fractured past. Tears pricked my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Why do you hate me so much?" I demanded, voice cracking under the weight of years. Her eyes flickered something raw, almost vulnerable before hardening again. "Because you have what I never did. The spotlight, the hope, the chance to be seen, and you've stolen it from me." I swallowed hard, heart pounding. Maybe I fought harder, maybe I deserved it. Her face twisted in rage, and in a sudden burst of anger, she slammed her fist against the wall. The sound cracked through the room like thunder. "You don't deserve anything, not your dreams, not your success. You're nothing but a fraud." A scream caught in my throat. The world spun, dark and cold. But somewhere deep inside, a fierce fire ignited. "Watch me," I whispered through clenched teeth. "Watch me rise." Lynn's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more. The battle wasn't just between us, it was a war for survival, for identity, for the truth buried beneath years of lies and betrayal. And I was ready to fight with everything I had. The night was suffocating, thick with tension and the scent of burnt coffee lingering in the stale air. My cramped apartment had transformed into a battleground where dreams collided with harsh reality. The clatter of tools, the sharp hiss of solder, and the relentless tapping of rain against the window pane blended into a discordant symphony of struggle. I hunched over my workbench, fingers trembling as I pieced together fractured circuits, each failure slicing deeper into my fragile hope. "Focus, Allison." Maya's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and unyielding. Her eyes, fierce and unblinking, held me accountable. "Talent without discipline is a flicker in the storm," she said, voice laced with challenge. "You have the spark, but do you have the flame?" I wanted to scream. To tell her I was drowning under the weight of it all, the sleepless nights, the creeping doubts, the betrayals that shadowed my every step. Instead, I forced a nod. Across the room, Eli cracked a dry joke, his humor a fragile lifeline amidst the darkness. "If misery paid, you'd be a billionaire." A weak smile ghosted my lips, but it vanished as Jordan stepped forward, his gaze sharp and critical. "You're chasing ghosts, Allison. Maybe some dreams aren't meant to be caught." His words were poison, seeping into my resolve, but also fueling an inferno I refused to extinguish. The clock on the wall mocked me with frozen hands, time standing still as if waiting for me to break. And break I nearly did. A sudden crash shattered the fragile Call Me laptop slid from the desk, screen splintering like my shattered confidence. Tears blurred my vision, bitter and silent. "This can't be the end," Maya whispered, kneeling beside me, her voice steady like a lighthouse in the storm. "You either rise from these ashes or you fall." Through clenched teeth, I whispered back, "I will rise." But the shadows around me grew longer. Whispers of betrayal surfaced, leaks, secrets, alliances twisted and broken. I confronted Jordan, searching for truth in his guarded eyes, but the line between friend and foe blurred into a dangerous dance. Every setback was a blow, every small victory a fragile breath. Yet, through the relentless storm, a fierce fire burned within me. I was no longer just a dreamer. I was a warrior forged by pain and defiance. And this crucible would not break me. The grand hall buzzed with anticipation, a living, breathing beast pulsing with expectation. Velvet curtains framed the stage like the jaws of fate, heavy and unforgiving. Every footstep I took echoed like a drumbeat of my relentless fight, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The spotlight found me harsh, blinding, yet strangely comforting. I could feel every eye piercing through the shimmering haze of lights, every breath held, every whisper swallowed in the charged silence. In my hands, the device gleamed like a fragile promise, a testament forged from shattered dreams, sleepless nights, and relentless hope. I took a shaky breath, steadying the trembling in my fingers. "This isn't just technology," I began, voice firm despite the tempest inside. "It's a beacon for anyone who's ever been invisible, dismissed, or underestimated." Gasps rippled through the crowd, a wave of awe and disbelief. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught Lynn's stare, no longer the confident smirk I'd grown to despise, but eyes wide with shock, fear, and something darker, regret. Power shifted. Where once Lynn had wielded shadows and whispers, now I stood unshakable, radiant, a lighthouse cutting through her carefully spun darkness. Suddenly, the massive projection screen flickered. White letters exploded across the backdrop, Lynn's private emails, her calculated lies, manipulations laid bare in unforgiving light. A collective gasp surged through the audience, disbelief blooming into a roar of support. Lynn's jaw clenched so tightly, her knuckles whitened, hands trembling as her mask shattered. The air crackled with justice, served cold. Applause thundered, sweeping me into waves of vindication and relief. But beneath the roar lay something deeper, a quiet satisfaction that this was no mere victory. This was reclamation, reclaiming not only my invention but my dignity, my dreams, my future. Faces blurred proud mentors, stunned skeptics, haunted former allies, all witnesses to the tide that had irrevocably turned. Yet, beneath the triumph, a shiver slid down my spine. A whisper in the shadows. The war was far from over. Lynn's phone buzzed insistently in my pocket, a message that chilled me to my core. "You think this is the end? Wait until you see what's next." The crowd cheered, oblivious to the storm gathering just beyond the spotlight. I stood tall, but the fight had only just begun. The applause had barely faded when the real storm hit. Outside the grand hall, whispers churned like venomous waves, slicing through the fragile calm I had fought so hard to build. The victory felt hollow now, a fragile mask cracked by relentless suspicion and biting betrayal. Back in the sterile glow of my apartment, the air was thick with suffocating tension. The walls seemed to close in, the silence louder than any shout. I could almost hear the ticking of the clock, relentless, unforgiving, counting down the moments before the next blow. The phone buzzed Linna's name, flashing like a warning. My heart pounded in my throat, every nerve screaming that her war was far from over. Messages arrived like daggers, veiled threats, cold insinuations, legal challenges poised to destroy everything. "You'll never be safe," one text read. "This is only the beginning." I clenched my fists so tightly my nails bit into my palms. The fight had shifted, no longer a battle for invention, but for survival itself. At work, the atmosphere turned poisonous. Colleagues who once smiled now wore masks of envy and thinly veiled hostility. Meetings became minefields where whispered doubts and sideways glances cut deeper than any accusation. Maya, my mentor, fought fiercely by my side, but even her fierce loyalty couldn't shield me from the growing isolation. "They're circling," she warned, eyes dark with concern. "You need to steel yourself. This is a war of attrition." Financial pressures tightened like a noose. Unexpected bills piled up, threatening to strangle the fragile progress I had made. Sleepless nights blurred into days filled with anxiety and doubt. Then came the betrayal from within. Jordan, once a rival, now a suspect. Whispers of leaked information, of secret meetings with competitors. I confronted him in a tense showdown, words sharp as knives, accusations flying in the dim light of the lab. His silence was the loudest answer. My sanctuary was crumbling. One night, the weight became unbearable. Tears spilled unchecked, as frustration exploded in a fury of shattered glass and slammed doors. The apartment shook with my rage, a raw, primal scream of a woman pushed to her limits. But even in that darkness, a flicker of defiance remained. Maya's steady hand found mine in the wreckage. "You're not alone," she whispered fiercely. "And I won't let them break you." Friends who stayed became lifelines, their quiet support a balm against the storm. I realized then, This fight was no longer just mine. It was a battle for every voice silenced, every dream crushed. And I would rise, again and again, from the ashes of betrayal. The true war had begun. The first light of dawn crept silently through the cracked window pane, casting long, trembling shadows across the worn floorboards. The city was waking, but I was still caught between exhaustion and awakening, a fragile thread stretched taut between despair and hope. My body ached with the scars of battles fought and lost. My mind was a battlefield where doubt and determination clashed relentlessly. But today, something was different. I wasn't the frightened girl hiding in the corners of her past anymore. I was a warrior carved from fire and tears. The phone buzzed softly, a message from Maya, a reminder that I was not alone. Her words were simple, but heavy with truth. The night is darkest before the dawn. Hold on. I stood by the window, fingers tracing the cracked glass. Outside, the world stretched vast and indifferent. But inside me, a fierce storm was breaking free. The shattered mirror on my dresser reflected fragments of who I had been, but also shards of who I could become. No longer was I a prisoner of my past wounds. I whispered to the silence, "This is not the end. It is the beginning." The scars were a map, guiding me through the labyrinth of pain and resilience. Every broken piece told a story of survival, every tear a testament to my refusal to be invisible. In the quiet moments, I felt the weight lift, replaced by a stubborn flame that refused to be snuffed out. The fight ahead was uncertain, riddled with shadows and threats, but also bursting with possibility. I would no longer wait for permission to be seen, to be heard, to be free. The city outside came alive with the scent of rain-soaked earth and blooming jasmine, symbols of renewal and growth. Beside me, Maya's steady presence was a beacon, a reminder that even in the darkest storms, we are never truly alone. Together, we would face the unfolding horizon, mysteries to unravel, battles to fight, and dreams to reclaim. I took a deep breath, letting the cool morning air fill my lungs with strength. The past was a foundation, not a prison. With heart unbound and spirit fierce, I stepped forward, ready to write the next chapter of my story. Because every dawn holds the promise of rebirth. And mine was just beginning to shine. If this story moved you, hit that like button so I know you're here with me. Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments. Your voice matters. If you know someone who's faced betrayal or needs a reminder to keep fighting, share this video with them. And don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful stories that inspire and ignite. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, we're stronger.